between the two of them.
The inside of Coates.
Barker gets too heavily involved.
And that's Whitehead and Coates.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the VRRC and the second round of the season for the Cammus Simulation Touring Car Championship. They got off to a sparkling start a week ago around the national circuit at Donington Park, produced two fantastic races. The second one in particular, I think, will go down in history as one of the very best we've ever put on. Certainly the final lap battle between Carl Felvis and Joel Lask for victory will live long in the memories of all those who took part, and I'm sure all of you at home who watched and enjoyed too. Tonight, though, myself, Andy McEwan, rejoined by Jack Oliphant today for the two races around the Brands Hatch Indy circuit, a completely different challenge facing the drivers here tonight than they had at Donington. And Jack, whilst you were absent from Donington, I'm sure you've caught up with all of the action, and you will agree that we're off to a pretty exciting start.
Yeah, I don't think anybody expected anything different, to be fair, from this Touring Car Championship. A whole host of new drivers and returning drivers, some favourite cars out there on show, and of course some brilliant tracks. It all culminated to what was a quite fantastic Donington Park opener. But we're at Brands Hatch now, which means we're back home. It's touring cars, it's Brands Hatch. It just feels right, doesn't it? It is round two, as Andy said, and then we're off to Croft. I won't say anything more about how I feel about Croft, but when we're off to the best circuit in the world, and me and Andy both agree on it, it's Alton Park. Snetterton, Thruxton, Brands Hatch again, but of course the GP loop later in the season. It doesn't act as the finale, though. That is hosting at Silverstone, where we use the GP circuit, which is slightly unusual for touring cars. Andy, normally is reserved for the GTs and the F1s of the world, but it's a brilliant track. I'm sure it'll serve up something special.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it will be well suited to these cars, which again run with hybrid power, remember. So that extra electronic boost that they get, that's going to be really useful down those long straights of the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit. The kind of track that really is unlike anything else on the calendar. And so that's going to be a fascinating venue for our final round, where we are very, very likely to have another one of those nip and tuck, nail-biting championship deciders. Well, last time around, as we said, we were at Donington Park, the season opener. We witnessed two very, very good races. The first of those was kind of a typical round one of the new championship kind of race, where Jack Smith led every lap from pole position. The big mover, really, was his teammate Oliver Gibson, who came through from the second row of the grid to finish in second position, making it a DK Power Racing 1-2. And he then also backed that up with a solid seventh in race two, whilst Jack Smith went on to finish fourth. So it's Smith who came out as the championship leader, Gibson third, and sandwiched between the two BMWs, the lone BMWs on the grid, was the HFT Racing Honda of Kyle Felvis, who had, again, a really solid night. In fact, mirroring the results that Jack Smith was able to score. He had a fourth in race one, a win in the reverse grid race two, but just didn't quite manage to take as many bonus points for things like pole positions and fastest laps as Jack Smith, and that's where Jack builds up that narrow advantage. But as I said, the battle that Carl Felvis had with Joel Lask on that final lap was an absolute thriller, and eventually it did go the way of Kyle. Jack Smith was voted the driver of the round for what was a pretty perfect week of racing. But one of the things we were discussing, myself and Lewis Edwards, who joined me on the commentary last week, Jack, was that I think this could be quite a circuit-specific championship. The BMW was quite clearly the car to have at Donington Park, but Brands Hatch Indy, well, that could be a different story.
Yeah, it could be, and we see that in the real touring car series across the world, don't we? Especially when it's rear-wheel drive, front-wheel drive, different wheelbases, and XYZ. There's loads of things that go into these sort of championships, isn't there? And ultimately, I know I've been driving the BMW when I was doing last week actually, when I was in London. The reason why I wasn't here on the broadcast, driving the BMW and driving the Ford, and they are very different to drive, but equally the bopping that we've done, the balance of power, means that I pretty much got within a tenth of a second of each other in either car, which shows that they are very equal, but they do definitely have different driving styles, and obviously that will, like you said, dictate depending on which track they're at as well. But it's not like the drivers are not used to these tracks. Andy, everybody's been to Brands Hatch 1,000 times, and Donington, Silverstone, and all those sort of things. So I think all the drivers will know exactly how to drive these circuits. It's whether or not they can get their cars around the circuit as quickly as they'd like.
Of course, the real question, Jack, is how many tenths of a second you were off your brother's pace in a BMW touring car around Brands Hatch, a place where I'm sure he has a few fond memories, that's for sure. All of this then from Donington Park last time out means that we have a championship table that looks a little bit like this. Jack Smith coming out championship leader, as we saw. from Carl Felvis and Oliver Gibson in third. Already 8 points between first and third. We've seen championships get down to the last round where 4 or 5 drivers have been separated by 8 points. I'm sure that gap will come down as the season goes on. Scott Bugner is the highest placed of the LB Motorsport drivers, but really threw away a good result in race 1 with some early moments on cold tyres, having started on the front row, finished a lot further back than arguably he should have done. He'll be looking to bounce back from that tonight. Joel Last 5th, and absent Nicky Taylor is 6th, but will likely drop back. In fact, that's joint 6th with Josh Martin and Eric Axelson 3 points further back. The only 2 drivers to have taken the Vauxhall Astra as an option for this season, and it didn't really pay off that well at Donington Park. Elliot Dalton-Ayres in 9th, one of the stars of the GT Championship that just concluded, and Andy Dorman completing the top 10. But we've got a big grid of drivers, lots of others who I'm sure will be looking to try and move into that top 10 in the points before the end of the season. If they can do that, and certainly if they can move into the top 5 or so, Jack, then they may well be taking home a prize come season's end.
Yes, and the prizes are not to be sniffed at either, of course. We've got the Cammus Simulations wheelbase as the first place prize in the championship, along with a nice shiny first place trophy as well. We've got the Aegon 34-inch monitor as second, and in third we've got the Thrustmaster handbrake and shifter, which of course is accompanied by the third place trophy. So again, lots of prizes that are really worth an awful lot of money. We're really packing the touring cars, and the GTV3, actually, to be fair, had similar prize pools. So it's exciting to see that getting carried over, and exciting to see that the top 5, like Andy's just said, is also carrying over in terms of prizes, because fourth place gets 2 hours of sim practice at the VRRC Sim Centre, which is constantly developing, constantly getting better, and having spoken to Rich last week, may even be changing once again, only for the better, of course. And fifth place is another hour of sim practice at the VRRC Sim Centre. Very easy to say. I'm sure I'll get the mick taken out of me later on by Rich for that one. There's also a prize draw. You get 2 1-hour sim practices at VRRC, but you have to have done 7+ rounds, and I think to be out and outside of the top 5 overall to be involved with that potential prize draw. Then there's the driver of the round. There's so many prizes. I'm already sick of my own voice, but there's a driver of the round, which gets a jacket from NGK, and of course, a little medal that you can display on your wall. And the top scorer of the night gets an NGK hat. But there's not only that, there's a viewer prize as well, isn't there, Andy?
There is indeed, and last week that went to Josh Martin's #1 fan, or at least he used to be, back when Josh Martin was winning championships and winning races with regularity. I think Dave is still clinging on in there at the helm of the Josh Martin fan club, but he managed to take home the viewers prize, if you like, another jacket courtesy of our sponsors NGK, but we'll make sure that that goes to someone new every week. So if you want to try and get your hands on that, be sure to like and share the stream and leave some interesting, funny, insightful, whatever sort of comment you can come up with, really, within reason, in the YouTube chat. If it catches our eye for the right reasons, then you may well be receiving a nice little package in the post in the very near future. Right, I think it's time for us to shut up for a moment or two, which is excellent news. I'm sure the viewers will agree. We're almost ready to dive into the qualifying session, but first let's take a look around the short, sharp bull ring of a circuit that is the Brands Hatch Indy circuit.
Hello and welcome to Brands Hatch Indy for the second round of the Cammus Simulation Touring Car Championship Season 4. Already into Paddock Hill Bend, take a late apex, hook up the curb for a bit of rotation and then power through the corner. Into Druids, we go down to third gear and then take second just as we hit the apex, stay tight to the inside and then run it out wide as much as you can. Into Graham Hill, I keep it in fourth, focusing on a later apex and then making sure you don't extend the track limits there. Now we've got a very tricky little chicane. I take the lift just before the chicane so that I can power through flat out through the chicane. Final corner, take a very late apex here. Be careful for understeer or oversteer, and then back onto the hybrid. And then we take the shortest run to the line, and that already completes a lap of Brands Hatch Indy.
Qualifying then well underway here at Brands Hatch. Drivers still getting themselves up to speed though. Only a 15-minute qualifying session, so they have to get a bit of a hurry up. But a short track, lots of cars out there as well. 23 drivers entered this week, only one fewer than we had last time out at Brands Hatch. And therefore, finding clear track, Jack, is not going to be easy to do. I know that the drivers have been warned about blue flags, they've been warned about merging from the pit lane exit, but even so, sometimes there's only so much you can do on such a tight circuit as this to stay out of the way.
Yeah, it's a bit of a nightmare, to be honest. It was like this in real life. It's like this at track days. It's like this on the sim as well. Brands Hatch is just a short, narrow circuit. There's just no getting away from it. And we absolutely love the fact that we've got a massive grid here at the VRRC. But that does come with some of its problems. But you know what? It's part of the weekend of racing. It's part of the evening of racing, I should say. Actually, the drivers, not only do they have to be fastest over one lap, not only do they have to have the best racecraft, a little bit of luck in there as well, they also have to be able to navigate the perils of practice and the quarrels of qualifying as well. And this one is certainly one of the more challenging on the calendar. Scott Bugner, though, is doing a pretty decent job. He's qualified so far in provisional pole position and about a tenth of a second ahead of Josh Martin and Joel Lask. So that's pretty impressive if you consider how close the likes of Josh Martin all the way down to Andy Dorman is spread out between about a tenth of a second. Scott Bugner is separated by, well, over a tenth of a second, just to second place.
Indeed so. We're expecting things to get arguably even tighter than that before the end of the session. You're watching on board here with Jack Smith, and again, this is something new for our touring car season. We've never tried this before, but a good bunch of the drivers are on a Zoom call so that we can dip in and out, take a look at them hard at work on board their sim rigs. We got some fantastic coverage of Kyle Felvers during that final lap battle at Donington Park. Dave is already trying to contend for a double best comment of the week award, by the way, which I've already told him he can't have. But yes, the elephant in the room, very much keeping an eye on Jack Smith there. That is the highlight so far of the onboard cameras this week. But yes, seeing Kyle Felvers' reactions to the battle that he was having with Joel Lask a week ago, Jack, was a real insight into exactly how animated drivers can become when they're in those sort of situations. Thankfully, we had his audio on mute, because I don't think much of what he was saying was broadcastable, but this is a really fascinating insight into just how much hard work this really is.
Yeah, I was going to say I quite like the fact that we're very professional here at VRRC, but every so often it would be pretty funny if Lewis Edwards just accidentally unmuted something, and all of a sudden we get the real raw experience of what a driver goes through. But of course, that wouldn't be very professional, so we probably won't do that. It is very interesting. There's Ethan Hill as well, a little bit further away, but you can see, you know, from a different perspective, very smooth with the wheel there. A bit of a difference to Jack Smith, and I'm sure Kyle last week with his onboard probably soaring away at the wheel, where everybody always says you've got to be nice and calm and smooth with the inputs of a steering wheel and everything. But when you actually get into the bowels of a race, Andy, you know as well as I these days that all of a sudden that can go out the window, and it's about survival whilst also going as quickly as possible. And sometimes soaring at the wheel is exactly what you need and end up doing.
Exactly so. I mean, look, I've never been the smoothest of drivers, I must admit, but certainly when I'm in the heat of battle, you're absolutely right. You become all arms and elbows, especially touring car racing, and especially in these kind of cars, the front-wheel drive cars in particular. I think they really do respond well to that sort of treatment. Big improvement there from Eric Axelsen, up into third fastest then for Eric. Ethan Hill has jumped into the top 5 as well, and Josh Martin up there too. So we're already starting to see some names who didn't really feature that heavily at the front at Donington Park starting now to make some noises. It was a strangely under the radar start really for both of the green Vauxhalls, the Mean Green Racing Team Vauxhalls, Eric Axelsen and Josh Martin. Josh Martin scoring a few more points than his illustrious multiple former champion teammate indeed. But here at Brands Hatch, a much tighter circuit, that shorter sort of, not necessarily shorter wheelbase, but a shorter platform of the Vauxhall, I think is going to be well suited to this track. And so far that seems to be the case.
Yeah, Eric's loving it, isn't he? And look how close it is between the top 4, less than half, pretty much half a tenth of a second, with Jack Smith just currently in the pit. So we heard off Lewis before we went live, Andy, that he thinks it's going to be a pit run, basically. You only get one tyre. Apparently they churn up pretty quickly, so it could be interesting. Getting a lot of people coming in now, maybe getting out there on a fresh set of tyres to do one more set of running, see if they can eke out the last little bit of time, because of course the track is progressing all the time. We were going into qualifying, I think Rich said it was around the 95-96% track grip. He doesn't even suspect that we're going to get to 100 by the time we get into the first race. So the track is constantly evolving. We may well see race times going a little bit quicker than the qualifying times.
Oh, you can see the scrum to get out of the pit lane there with just 5.5 minutes to go, and got to be careful not to impede someone there. Very easy to do as you exit the pit lane. Eric Axelsen, by the way, has now jumped into third and is therefore separating the LB Motorsport Hyundais. So Joel last fastest, Scott Bugner third, and Eric Axelsen in between them now. Jack Smith fourth, Ethan Hill fifth, Josh Martin sixth, whilst Oliver Gibson, Elliot Dalton-Ayres, Andy Dorman and Craig Curtis complete the top 10. Craig Curtis, a new driver for us this season, and he managed to get a 10th place finish in the very first race last time out at Donington Park, and he's in exactly the same position again here in the latter stages of qualifying, following Andy Dorman coming through. And Andy Dorman has proven in the past, hasn't he, Jack, that he's pretty handy in these front-wheel drive touring cars. He's at the wheel of a Ford Focus for this season. Dorman had an 11th and an 8th place finish last time at Donington, but on this sort of pace, he could improve on that today.
He's one of the more popular drivers on the circuit as well, isn't he? Whenever he's improving, whenever he's running towards the front, okay, yes, sometimes it may be because of a reverse grid race, but everybody's very excited to see how well he can do and see if he can get him on the podium. And I love Andy Dorman because and the likes of Andy Carroll as well, because whenever they do get on the podium, they come in and their interview is always so positive. I think, oh my days, who's that spinning off in front of Craig Curtis? I'm not sure who that was actually, but yeah, it was Alok Iyengar. There we go. But yeah, I do love Andy Dorman in a front-wheel drive car. I think we're going to get him on the podium at some point in this season. I'm just looking forward to when.
Oh, now Scott Bugner to pole position. Big improvement there. We just saw one of the other Hyundais. That was, I've already forgotten who that was. Kenny Press, I think, wasn't it, at the final corner? But Scott Bugner to pole position. It's now an LB Motorsport 1-2 again. And these two, who have a history of working splendidly well together as teammates in Touring Car Championships, could be about to share the front row of the grid. Look, though, at how ridiculously tight these lap times are. The top four are covered by less than 7/100ths of a second. Bugner last, Axelsen and Smith, that is 3 different types of car. It is 3 front-wheel drive cars ahead of a rear-wheel drive car. The Hyundai, a very different shape as well to the Vauxhall, and we've also got a Ford and a Honda right in behind, actually. So 5 different makes of car in the top 6. There's a reason, I think, touch wood, Jack, that we haven't been hearing too many complaints about BOP so far this season, because that is as close and as even as you like.
Yeah, and long may it continue as well, because there's also one of the rear-wheel drives. I mean, we only have 2 rear-wheel drive cars in the... Oh, who's that going off the inside? We only have 2 rear-wheel drive cars in the championship, and the BMW currently sat in 4th place shows that it is just as quick as any of the front-wheel drives, even though we were anticipating that Brands Hatch Indy might be a front-wheel drive circuit. It's less than a 1/10 of a second away from being on pole position. So, yeah, these cars have been brilliantly worked on. They have had about 200 hours put into them to make sure they're all as level as they can possibly be. Ethan Hill, who's currently in 6th place, he's had an off track in the. In fact, I think this may be his outlap actually. So we expect him to get a little bit quicker. Andy Dorman's just gone and put in a green sector 2. He's still in 5th position. However, Oliver Gibson again was a little bit quicker on that last lap on the sector 2. So quite a few people hooking up sector 2. They just need to get sector 1 right. And in this traffic, very difficult to do, especially going up towards Druids.
Indeed it is. Ethan Hill then 6th fastest, going well at the moment. Really impressed with Jack Smith's pace actually here, because he is carrying, remember, the maximum success ballast, 50 kilos, as a result of being the top scorer from a week ago. So, you know, that's how it works here. We give with one hand, we take away with the other. So he received an NGK bobble hat for being the top scorer at Donington Park, but he also receives 50 kilos of ballast. So really impressive there to be within half a 10th of the pole position, because unbelievably they've managed to tighten things up even further now. Just 41 thousandths between the top 4, and Elliot Dalton-Ayres now jumps into 5th position as well on a 46.814. He is only 68 thousandths away from pole position, so that is now 5 of them under a very small blanket. And in 6th place, Jack, Jordan Taylor. Now, Jordan Taylor is one of the youngest drivers on the grid. He's a junior racer, and he is absolutely flying, running with HFT Racing, who have this history, don't they, of producing some really, really impressive young talent, and Jordan Taylor is absolutely flying right now. I don't know if we saw much of Jordan a week ago. No, I don't think he got out with us at Donington Park, but here he is at Brands Hatch showing us exactly what he can do.
Yeah, I was thinking, I just put a message on the Discord, which is probably what sparked your conversation about Jordan Taylor there. I was wondering who he is. I was wondering if he was any relation to Nicky Taylor, and all of a sudden this guy has turned up and he's absolutely flying. Reece Bell's not flying anywhere at the moment. He's stuck in the kitty litter, unfortunately. Is he run out of fuel? Is he just beached? He can't spawn back to the pits. He'll be disqualified. He may well be a bit stuck with the last 30 seconds remaining on this qualifying. But yeah, Jordan Taylor, very, very impressed. I'm loving the livery of the car as well. That is one way to get commentators' attention immediately, is to have a great looking car, and that's exactly what Jordan Taylor has. And Oliver Gibson flies into second place. It's pole position on the left hand side, but I think on my timing screen he's tied with Scott Bugner, but Scott Bugner on my timing screen has the pole. Oliver Gibson second, but on the stream it's the other way around. I don't know how to call that one.
Well, they've set exactly the same lap time. Now, how this should work is it should go to Bugner because he did the lap time first. That's how things would normally work, but not entirely sure how Assetto Corsa, which is the sim we're using here tonight, will determine that one. But that is remarkable. He promised you a close qualifying session. It quite literally doesn't get closer than that now. Can Oliver Gibson settle the tiebreak here by improving again? If he can, then it means that he will steal the pole position away from Scott Bugner. Across the line he will go. And yes, by 1/100th of a second, Oliver Gibson takes the pole position. He was nowhere throughout that session. He was almost outside of the top 10, in fact, with a couple of minutes to go, but he will put his BMW onto pole position ahead of Scott Bugner by 1/100th a second. The top 6 of them, well, hang on, that's changing again now because Elliot Dalton Ayres goes third fastest. Jack Smith and Josh Martin, in fact, it was improving there to 7th place. So Josh Martin within 800ths or so. Dalton Ayres goes third. 3 Hyundais, but they are trailing the BMW of Oliver Gibson. For a truly remarkable qualifying session. Well, we have not let up the intensity of this championship one bit, have we, after that thrilling race at Donington, an equally thrilling and close fought qualifying session here at Brands Hatch. We'll have all the reaction to that, plus a chat with our pole sitter in a moment or two. Welcome back, everyone, to the Cammus Simulation Touring Car Championship here at Brands Hatch. The Brands Hatch Indy Circuit always does produce close qualifying sessions and close races, but my word, did it deliver for us tonight with pole position snatched by 1/100th of a second in the final moments of the qualifying session, and something like the top 23 or so covered, or 22, by less than a second. It's going to be a fascinating first race coming up in a few minutes' time, but first, an opportunity to catch up with our pole sitter, Oliver Gibson, who joins us now in the commentary box. And Oliver, I'll be honest with you, I didn't think that you were the person we were going to be talking to at the end of that session, because with a couple of minutes to go, you were languishing at the back of the top 10. Where on earth did you find that time from?
I have no idea, to be honest. I thought I could, if I put the lap together, I might get, I don't know, maybe top 5, top 6, something like that. But it was I mean, it was like my Norris ring lap in the TCR series. It was just everything came together, so I don't know.
Just to add the pressure on then, of course, a week ago we saw your teammate Jack do this. He took pole position, he started from the front, got a brilliant start, led every lap. Can you do the same?
That's the plan, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's like you said, it's so close. The top 23 of us, we're all, I think we're all within a shot of winning this. So, yeah, I mean, the plan is get a good start and then just hope.
Yeah, hope for the best, I guess, but such a competitive grid of cars right behind you. A track where it isn't easy to overtake. Do you expect maybe that the others will sort of really be targeting you in these early laps? Because that can sometimes be where the BMW just takes a lap or so to get going, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's very much like it takes a couple laps to get the tyres in. So I'm expecting a challenge throughout the race, but especially on these opening laps, and turn 1 is just going to be, I don't know what to expect. No practice for that, so that'll be fun.
Absolutely. Well, try and arrive there first by a few car lengths like Jack did last week, and you might just have a chance. Oliver, we'll let you go and finish off your preparations, but huge congratulations, and thank you for producing a really exciting conclusion to that session.
Thank you.
So Oliver Gibson then on the pole position here at Brands Hatch. That wasn't bad, was it, Jack?
No, I'd also like the fact that when he put in that absolutely blistering time, we could see his reaction, and more to the point, we could see that there wasn't a reaction. I mean, we were so excited in the commentary box, and I bet everybody at home was pretty amazed as well. And he just looked like it had been like a Sunday drive, like nothing had happened. So I think he seems very cool, calm, and collected. Maybe that's the nerves seeping through more than anything. But yeah, looking forward to it. As he said, the BMW rear-wheel drive, it does take a couple of laps to bed in, especially without warm-up laps here on AC. So I expect the Hyundais to be putting the pressure on by maybe coming up to 30s. But he should get a good launch. Those rear-wheel drives should get to turn 1 pretty quickly. Just physics allows them to get there that well, and you should get out of Druids pretty well as well with the rear-wheel drive. So after that, he's going to have his metal tested, put it that way.
He is indeed, because he's got some very quick drivers behind him. 3 very quick Hyundais, actually. Scott Bugner and Joel Last, the LB Motorsport cars, sandwiching Elliot Dalton-Ayres in the Hyundai. Then you've got the Vauxhall of Eric Axelsson 5th, the other BMW of Jack Smith 6th, easy for me to say. And then in 7th, we should have another green Vauxhall, but Josh Martin is not there. We heard Oliver Gibson pointing this out to us just before his interview. Josh Martin has disconnected from the server, so whether he gets in late or not, we'll have to wait and see, but there is a gap where he should be, just ahead of the very impressive Jordan Taylor and Andy Dorman, Ethan Hill, and Craig Curtis will complete the top 10 as round number 3 of the Cammus Simulation Touring Car Championship gets underway, and as expected, it's a great start from the rear-wheel drive BMWs. Gibson will lead into turn 1. Here comes Jack Smith, though, the points leader, round the outside of the sea of Hyundais through Paddock Hill Bend, and he's up to 4th already, ahead of Joel Lask and Eric Axelsson. Fantastic start that from Jack Smith, but he's on the outside line now, and carrying all of that weight, gets muscled out of the way by Joel Lask, who is never one to back down for an opportunity to get his elbows out, and Jack Smith has to settle back into 5th. Gibson has gone already, though. Bugner 2nd, Dalton-Ayres 3rd, Last 4th, and Jack Smith up 1 to 5th.
Yeah, I said that Gibson might be feeling the pressure by the time he gets halfway around the lap, but he's not, is he? He's flown away from the likes of Bugner and Dalton Ayres as they scrap over second place. There's Ethan Hill and Kyle Felvis. Kyle started in 13th place, obviously taking Josh Martin out of the equation. That's technically 12th, but he's still done well to move up 2 positions. Aric Axelsson is still in 6th position, with Jordan Taylor still in 7th as well. Can Kyle Felvis pile the pressure on, get that cutback potentially on Oliver Curtis? Not this time, man. Oliver Gibson leads by 0.6 of a second.
Yes, he does. Gibson already getting away. There's a car sideways further back and ricocheting off each other. Paul Laramie involved in all of this. Alec Iyengar too. And I think it's Iyengar in the blue Honda who was all out of shape out of Paddock Hill Bend. Laramie climbs the curb. This is all for about 13th, 14th place because Lee Morgan is at the front of this group. Lee Morgan, the F1000 champion. Very, very rapid real-world single-seater racer, going much better this week in the front-wheel drive Honda than he did at Donington Park. He's ahead then of the Ford of Sam Zero. The next 2 cars are both Hondas. That's Iyengar and Laramie. Way wide there. The Toyota, that was Smith in the number 11 Toyota. As we watch on the right-hand side of the screen, Joel Last pushing hard to chase after the top 3.
Yeah, I was going to say the top 3 have done a good job actually of pulling away somewhat, haven't they? But this is where the fight is really for the battle to be in the top 10. Carl Felvis has moved his way up 1 more position. Is it going to be another one? Yes, it does look like that, doesn't it? With Andy Dorman being forced out of it through Druids. There is Kyle Felvis. Again, we're not, luckily we can't hear what he's saying, but I imagine he'd be relatively happy to be in 8th position from where he started, especially as in the in the YouTube chat. He didn't exactly enjoy the ballast by the looks of it. So in the race, he's clearly a little bit quicker than he was in qualifying.
Someone was sideways ahead of them. Not quite sure who that was kicking up the tyre smoke. But yeah, Carl Felvis wasn't best pleased after qualifying. 8th place, though, would be some solid points. And of course, if he has a bad night tonight, it's not the end of the world, because then he will lose some of that ballast for next week. And Croft is not a great track to be carrying ballast at. So, you know, you win some, you lose some. Sometimes you have a not great week, but there is always a plus side to that. Felvis also a really hard racer, and he will be determined to try and move forward from here if he can. Things just starting to settle down now, but that gap at the front is creeping down. So weirdly, we've got those early laps out of the way where the Beamers we expected to struggle, rear-wheel drive cars. They heat the rear tyres up much more quickly than the fronts, and that can leave them vulnerable in the first laps. But actually, having weathered that particular storm, it's only now that Gibson is starting to be reeled in by the Hyundai train.
Yeah, well, the problem is it might be a human problem. Oliver Gibson might have thought that the maximum amount of concentration was needed to be at the beginning of the race, and he's probably right, but that means you can't drop it off too much once you actually bed it into the actual series of the thing. Now, is that Joel Lask and Elliot Dalton Ayres scrapping over 3rd place? I think it is. Joel Lask trying to put the moves on to get into that podium position. Jack Smith ever lurking, as we know how good a driver Jack Smith is. We know he's a champion in the making, if he hasn't already won one, actually, with VRRC. Way back in the day. He's going to be picking up points left, right and centre just from situations like this, Andy. He's a wily old racer.
He is indeed, and Joel Lask looking to try and get back onto that podium then. He's had a better start to this race already than he had to the opening race at Donington Park. One thing that I hadn't noticed, but Lewis Edwards, who doesn't miss much, has noticed, is that Oliver Gibson isn't using the hybrids as heavily as the Hyundai's chasing after him. So that will explain why they've been catching him, but he's been saving them for later in the race. And this is exactly what his teammate Jack Smith did in the first race at Donington. And really, that's what you need to do, I think. If you're in the lead, everyone's so evenly matched. It's not going to be easy to get past somebody, let alone for the race lead. So if you're the leader, you just need to manage the situation, manage the race. Don't use those hybrids until you absolutely have to. And Gibson's done really well at that so far.
Yeah, well, Brands Hatch Indy isn't exactly an easy place to make overtakes, is it? I mean, it's definitely, you do see a lot of them. Doesn't mean it's easy. You have to set it up 1 or 2 laps in advance. And the thing is, you could be setting that move up 1 or 2 laps in advance, and then it gets ruined by someone behind you just taking a lunge on the hybrid. So, yeah, I think Oliver Gibson is playing this exactly right. Scott Bugner is trying to chase him down as best he can. But if Joel Lask and Elliot Dalton Ayres stop quibbling over 3rd position, they could be the ones that actually upset Scott Bugner, and then Oliver Gibson will be away with the fairies. So, yeah, there's lots of sort of tactics and lots of stories that are yet to be told for this particular race. But at the moment, it's sort of shaping up quite nicely.
Stuart Vickers is out of the race for a reason that I have to say I haven't come across so far. Instead of hitting his hybrid button, he hit the return to pits button, which perhaps ought to be remapped before the start of the next race. So Stuart Vickers is our one and only retirement so far, despite a fairly lively start to the race. It was actually a very clean start to the race, it must be said. There is Nathan Smith hammering the curbs in his Toyota. Nathan, another driver making his debut here tonight with the VRRC. Didn't get to race with us at Donington Park, but he's out in what is not a particularly popular Toyota Corolla, it must be said. Whilst just behind him, Ethan Hill here is forcing his way up the inside of Chris Blakey for 17th position. Ethan Hill should be a bit further forward than this, you would have thought, in a type of car that we know he's gone well in the past, front-wheel drive touring cars, but struggling a little here, just getting the better. In fact, no, losing out there to Chris Blakey for 17th.
Yeah, very unusual for Ethan Hill, isn't it? We know he's had hardware issues in the past, and not entirely sure what's going on. Speaking of hardware issues, though, Josh Martin has reported, oh, wow, where is he going around Graham Hill Bend, Ethan Hill? It's so unlike him. Maybe he has damage on the car or something like that, but that is, yeah, very unlike Ethan Hill. But Josh Martin, the reason why he's not partaking in this race, his PC died, unfortunately, while he was waiting for the race to start. So nothing he could do, nothing we could do, anything like that, but hopefully we'll be back for race number 2 and we can see Eric Axelson's teammate back on the grid with him.
Well, speaking of Axelson just had a moment because he was briefly ahead of Jordan Taylor at paddock, and I think he went off because he's dropped a long way back and almost into the clutches of Andy Dorman, who has got past Kyle Felvis. Meanwhile, change for third, is there? Well, they're side by side. I think Lask had been ahead of Elliot Dalton Ayres, but Dalton Ayres comes back at him. Lask will get the back on the inside goes the Phoenix Sim Racing driver. That was a really aggressive move. He's back alongside Joel Lask, and this could favour Jack Smith, who is right behind them now. 3 wide. They will go to Paddock Hill Bend on the hybrid. There was Smith. Surely can't clear both of them. He's into 4th. Can he take 3rd as well? No, he can't. Joel Lask fighting back at the apex. Jack Smith has to be careful not to end up in the gravel trap. There's a bit of leaning on each other on the exit of the corner. How are they going to resolve this? Well, Dalton Ayres is back, or stays in 3rd place, gets back into 3rd place if you like. Jack Smith and Joel Lask are still side by side though, with finally Joel Lask staying ahead.
Yeah, if you're in a rear-wheel drive, you suffer from that sort of contact more than if you're in a front-wheel drive car. It just so happens that you can put your foot down in a front-wheel drive car and everything will probably sort itself out, whereas in a BMW or generally a rear-wheel drive car, you have to be a lot more patient. You can't just put your foot down, it'll spin the rear end round, you'll end up spinning big time. So Jack Smith, fortunately, once the contact started to be made, he had to come out of it and he'll have to start that move all over again. But look at the gap that it's given the top 2 now. Oliver Gibson and Scott Bugner, particularly Scott Bugner, will be loving the fact that he's got this 2-second margin between himself and the battle for 3rd place. He can focus solely on trying to get Oliver Gibson, as Jack Smith yet again looking at the inside of a battling Dalton Ayres and Lask fight.
Indeed so. Gibson and Bugner, remember, 3rd and 4th respectively in the championship, with Jack Smith down in 5th at the moment. This is an opportunity for them to get some points out of him. I know it's early in the season, but it's never too early to start considering the championship points, and Jack Smith, whilst he won't be dissatisfied with a 5th place finish necessarily, would have rather that 2 of his nearest championship rivals weren't starting to disappear up the road now. There you can see the top 2, Gibson and Bugner, 2.3 seconds back then to Dalton Ayres 3rd, Lask 4th, Jack Smith on the hybrid in 5th, with Jordan Taylor having a really solid run in 6th, but he's about to be given a real workover by a man who knows a thing or two about sim racing, and that is Eric Axelson. All of that experience, all of that guile, and he's coming up against one of the real rapid youngsters in the championship. That could become a really entertaining battle going on just a second or so behind these 3.
Storylines all over the park, aren't there, at the moment, Andy? And there is Eric Axelson. You can see how is he going to be working the wheel now. We saw on board with Jack Smith, Lewis Edwards was potentially thinking that he was overworking the car, overworking the rear tyres. They might start going off sooner than he would like. But how is Eric getting on with it now with the massive steering wheel? I don't know whether that's just perspective, but it looks absolutely massive, doesn't it? But he seems to be hunkered up behind, you're right, one of the newcomers and one of the young guns of the championship now, Jordan Taylor. It's weird to think that the likes of Kyle Felvis, not the youngest in the championship anymore by the sounds of it. Jordan Taylor is competing with that as Jack Smith ends up rear-ending Joel Lask.
Who got into the back of Elliot Dalton Ayres as well after all of that. So Jack Smith nearly, that was a great billiard shot that, he nearly got both of the Hyundais off into the gravel trap, but thankfully, again, as Jack said, front wheel drive, you steer into the slide, you floor the throttle, and you've got a good chance of saving it, and so in the end, no harm, no foul, but that was a really close moment, almost like Jack Smith, either Jack Smith massively outbraked himself, or Joel Lask braked a little bit earlier than Jack was expecting. Lask is back on that hybrid, down the pit straight. Is that going to get him alongside Elliot Dalton Dalton Ayres? It looks like it will, but he's presented with only the outside line. Dalton Ayres carrying less speed at the end of the straight, but of course is therefore able to brake later. Gets a brilliant switchback though. He tried this a lap ago, and I think that almost is what triggered the contact that we saw. But again, there is no way through on the inside. Elliot Dalton Ayres defending well for now. And that is Axelsson. That is Axelsson off with Andy Dorman. They've collided up at Druids, and the Swedish assassin is out of the top 10.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. He doesn't look very happy there in the car, does he? We're getting all the facial reactions, but he's trying to keep it as professional as he can while he gets past Andy Dorman. Now, is that Dorman letting him back through, or did he just get a bad run through Graham Hill Bend? I get the feeling it was letting Eric back through, which means it was potentially Andy's fault. A bit of a shame, Andy Dorman, we mean, of course. But at least it's good sportsmanship, isn't it, to let him back through?
It is indeed. Across the line they go. And into Paddock Hill Bend then. Eric Axelsson, well, he is 10th, but Dorman, as you said, down to 11th, letting him go again. That was a real shame, though, that had to end in contact. That was a good battle. I would say that would allow Jordan Taylor off the hook. Well, actually, it does, because Taylor is not the HFT car at the front of this queue. That is a struggling Kyle Felvers. If he's been complaining about the ballast hindering that Honda in outright pace, well, it's not going to help his tyre wear either on a track that can punish, and does punish, really, that left front tyre of a front-wheel drive car. So Felvers getting towards the end of the race, you can see the way the car's sliding around, almost as if he's got it set up to be as oversteery as possible, perhaps winding that brake bias back a little bit to try and account for that understeer going on into the second half of the race. So he stays in 7th then. No pressure now for Jordan Taylor, who could perhaps chase after that third place battle, which is as close as ever it has been. Dalton Ayres still ahead of Lask, who is still ahead of Jack Smith, but Smith is up the inside and has gone through. Brilliant stuff. Jack Smith up to 4th.
Yeah, no, he'll be satisfied with that one. It's been a long time coming, hasn't it? About 4 minutes we've been waiting for that move to happen. And Elliot Dalton Ayres is probably thinking the same thing, actually. He's probably relatively relieved, because look at the gap that he's got as Joel Last slides himself up to the left-hand side. Is he going to be there for the outside? No, Jack Smith holds that one off, but a little lock-up on the rear right means that he's just about, I was going to say missed the apex, but actually he got it down there, didn't he? So fair play. Jack Smith takes 4th.
Indeed so. Scott Bugner, by the way, having another real challenge at Oliver Gibson, who's really not used that many hybrids, certainly compared to Bugner, but Bugner throwing everything at him as he tries to chase after the race leader. That is Eric Axelsson sweeping past Andy Carroll. Another push to pass, quite literally there. The hybrid assisting him down the main straight as Axelsson tries to claw his way back up the field. This is a massive disappointment for the Mean Green Racing team because both drivers look to be a lot pacier tonight than they had been at Donington Park. Sadly, though, they're going to get a non-start out of Josh Martin, and, well, perhaps 7th at best for Eric Axelsson. Ethan Hill, meanwhile, battling away with Reese Bell, goes up the inside of Reese at Paddock Hill Bend, as we've had a change for the lead. Look on the left, Scott Bugner is ahead of Oliver Gibson. Now, was that with hybrid? Was it a mistake for Gibson? I'm not sure. They're still side by side, and Gibson trying to come back at him. Now the BMW driver is using the hybrid, but it's to attack, not defend. Bugner on the inside line at Paddock Hill Bend. Watch for the switchback. No, Scott Bugner knew exactly where to position the car, and he just about gets the lead.
Yeah, I thought he was going to hit the hybrid again, actually, Oliver Gibson, sorry, but he wasn't allowed to. Of course, there's a cooldown on the hybrid, which means you can't hit it within about 5 seconds of using it previously. He's got a lot of work to do now, Oliver Gibson. It's not easy to overtake ground here, but he has got a lot of hybrids left, whereas Scott Bugner, over the past 14 minutes, have used pretty much all of his. Gibson's got still single figures, but enough to be thinking about an attack. And as he uses it early, and he drifts the rear end out of it, and I think that's going to ruin his run. He won't be doing that in a rush again, but he still goes to the outside. He still gets a decent effort into Paddock Hill Bend. Is he late enough on the brakes? Yes, he is, but is he going to hold on to that? There's going to be no cutback. He's too much alongside it. He has got his nose in front going into Druids. Is Scott Bugner going to throw it all the way up the inside? Is Oliver Gibson going to hold on to it? No, there comes Scott Bugner holding on to that first place for as long as possible, and he bumps the rear-wheel drive beamer off. You can see Oliver Gibson soaring at the wheel. He won't be happy with that one.
No, and that will have aggravated Oliver Gibson. It will have aggravated his rear tyres even further, but that was a fantastic move that he so nearly pulled off. I mean, I can count on the fingers of one hand how many times I've seen someone go round the outside at Paddock Hill Bend and come out the other side with the position in the dry anyway. Quite a common move in the wet, but in dry conditions, absolutely not. Now, watch for Gibson. He's on that hybrid power again. He gets the slipstream. He pulls to the left-hand side. Can he repeat what he did a lap ago and outbrake the Hyundai around the outside? No, Bugner sends it in, but that might leave him vulnerable on the exit. Gibson is sideways again on the power, but he's got the inside line. 5 minutes to go. They are side by side again under the bridge, and Oliver Gibson this time has the preferred line. Now, will he give Bugner a taste of of his own medicine. He does not. That was really respectful racing for Gibson. It means that Bugner will hang on to the lead, but he kept it clean, Jack.
He did indeed, but he's keeping it drifting as well. That's the problem, I think, for Oliver Gibson right now. His rear tyres are going to be so affected, so he can have all of the hybrid in the world. If he can't get out the final corner in a straight line to actually use the hybrid in time, he's going to have no hope. And there he is, drifting yet again. Those rear tyres are going to be down to the canvases.
They will. Here comes Gibson again, though, lap after lap. Tries the outside line at Paddock Hill Bend. Now, how does it pan out this time? Bugner needs to try and park the car on the apex. Gibson again sideways, rallycross style. Has the inside line again into Druid's corner. And all of the time, of course, he's wearing down Scott Bugner on that hybrid use. Out of the hairpin, Bugner hanging on by the skin of his teeth. But this is another sensational race in the Cammus Simulation Touring Car Championship. Race 1 of the championship at Donington Park was a bit pedestrian. Race 2 was anything but, and this first race at Brands Hatch has been a proper touring car race, which is going to keep us guessing right to the flag, I'm sure. And of course, Jack, not keeping it entertaining through a reversed grid. This is just the fastest drivers in the best cars at the front of the field, nip and tuck.
It is absolutely that. You're right, as ever, Andy. But you can see Jack Smith and Joel Lask actually still fighting over 4th position as well. So it's not just the front two. As Jack Smith gets tagged by Joel Lask. Jack Smith in the rear-wheel drive, and as I've said before, once you get tagged in the rear-wheel drive, there is no coming back from it. In fact, I'm amazed he's still facing in a straight line. He flashes the lights. Now, the problem that Jack Smith will have is Jordan Taylor doesn't need to let him pass. There's absolutely no reason for it, but Joel Lask might have that guilty conscience and go behind Jordan Taylor and then and here it goes, and then let Jack Smith through. Now, Jordan Taylor, let's face it, Andy, is the man who's won out here.
4th place on your debut in the championship. I think Jordan Taylor would take that, wouldn't he? Especially given how competitive this grid is. I mean, that is sensational stuff. Here comes Gibson. He's running out of time now and is starting to run out of the hybrids. Look, he's down to, what is that now? 4 left for Oliver Gibson. Remember, he had loads in reserve earlier on, but he's throwing everything he's got at this now. Elliot Dalton-Ayres is within 2 seconds of these two as well, and if they really start holding each other up, or keep holding each other up, then it's not beyond the realms of possibility that Hyundai could get back to them as well. Down through Graham Hill Bend. The BMW should have the advantage off the corners, but I think, Jack, that Oliver Gibson has burnt up those rear tyres to the point that he can't get on the power, especially when he's trying to jump on that hybrid button. So the big advantage that he has seemingly isn't there anymore.
Bang on the money, yeah. Out of the final corner and out of Druids, he should be absolutely rapid. He should have the traction, but it just doesn't seem that he can get the power down. And even with that hybrid, it kicks in too late for him almost, doesn't it? It's almost as if he's getting to Paddock Hill, and because he can't get out of the corner well enough, previously, 200 meters ago or so, he just cannot get alongside and fully in front of Scott Bugner, who I don't think he's used the hybrid Scott Bugner in the past 4 laps or so. He hasn't needed to, because Oliver Gibson has done exactly the same thing every single time, and it hasn't worked. So Scott Bugner, all he needs to do is exactly the same thing every single time, and that is put his car in the middle of the track, going through Paddock Hill Bend, and making sure that you slow Oliver Gibson up enough through this corner, so when he puts the power down, his rear wheels drift.
And I tell you what, Elliot Dalton-Ayres is going to be with them by the end of this lap, I think. He's taking a second a lap out of these two as they battle in 3rd place. There will be time for 2 more laps. Meanwhile, Jordan Taylor has got a resurgent Jack Smith on his tail, and Jack Smith will be up for the fight. Looks to the inside, on board there with Jordan as he leans into the corner. That's Jack, in fact, we're watching, isn't it? As he leans into the corner at Paddock Hill Bend, but he can't find a way past the HFT Racing Honda. Jordan Taylor, an early candidate, no doubt about it, for driver of the day, because this has been a fantastic, if slightly fortuitous run, but he's driving the wheels off that Honda to try and defend 4th place. He has to do so for another lap and a half as they make their way towards clearways. Perhaps one chance here for Jack Smith to get past the Honda and for Gibson to get back into the lead.
Yeah, it may be slightly fortunate for Taylor, but let's face it, he is still ahead of some big names. He was ahead of Carl Felvis, he was ahead of Eric Axelson. Okay, they may have had some unfortunate moments in this race as well, but it's still a really good race by Jordan Taylor. As Jack Smith comes across the line, looking up the inside, I think that was more of a casual look rather than anything that's actually threatening. Is Eric Axelson and Carl Felvis, I believe, are battling behind, or is that Joel Lask actually? We look a little bit further forward.
No, that is Axelson defending, actually, from Felvis, who weirdly is coming back at him towards the end of the race. No way through there at Druids for Jack Smith. Scott Bugner, though, I think, has got this one covered now, barring a mistake at the final corner. I'm not convinced that Oliver Gibson has an answer for him. He's throwing it over the curbs, almost throws it off the track completely through Surtees and McLaren, but it will be Scott Bugner who comes off the final corner to become the third different race winner in the first 3 races in the Cammus Simulation Touring Car Championship after a sensational battle with Oliver Gibson. Lask wins it, Gibson second, Dalton Ayres third, and Jordan Taylor on his debut in the championship finishes in 4th. Fantastic drive from the HFT Racing Honda. Jack Smith will be frustrated with 5th, I suspect. Joel Lask likewise in 6th, Eric Axelson likewise in 7th, and Carl Felvis likewise in 8th. Craig Curtis will be the next happy driver, I think, in 9th, with Andy Carroll completing the top 10. Fantastic stuff, that. I'll tell you what, Jack, you missed a barnstormer at Donington Park, but they served another one up for you here at Brands Hatch.
Yeah, I was a bit worried, to be honest, when I heard that it was such a good race at Donington, but they've clearly turned the flare on here as well at Brands, and well, it always produces pretty awesome racing, doesn't it? But yeah, Scott Bugner, awesome drive. Once he got in front of Oliver Gibson, he just felt that he had it in control, didn't he? But I believe we're going to go to a very quick break before we go into all the interviews, and we'll see and hear exactly the thoughts on the top 3.
Well, 3 races, 3 different race winners, and another one that we're not going to forget for a while here at Brands Hatch, the 3rd round of the Cammus Simulation Touring Car Championship, serving up a treat, that is for sure. And as I said, it serves up our 3rd different winner from the first 3 races. Joel Lask joins us now in the commentary box, and Joel, that wasn't easy, was it? Sorry, Scott Bugner. Scott Bugner. I will try that again. Hello, Scott.
Hello.
It is easy to get you two confused. You're normally inseparable, but it was you flying the flag for LB Motorsport there. Well done.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it was really good. It was a really hard drive, bearing in mind there's not a lot of time, there's milliseconds in it for everyone. So it was hard driving, defending hard, a lot of hybrid left for Oliver, I could tell. So I was like, oh no, he's going to do me. So I just tried to leave 2 right till the end.
And it worked for you, but that battle that you had there, your defensive skills were really called upon in that one. Was there one particular part of the circuit which you were really having to go defensive at? Obviously, we saw Oliver was really trying to use that hybrid into Paddock Hill Bend lap after lap.
Yeah, he was really. The BM's really good on the power coming out of clearways, so that's why I needed to save the hybrid for there. I knew around Paddock Hill Bend and Druids I could just gain a little bit on him, but going through Graham Hill and through Surtees and clearways, he was all over me like a rash. So it sort of done me favours because a couple of weeks ago I won 2 races here and had to defend for my life for both races. So I think it sort of helped.
I was going to mention that you've got some happy memories from Brands Hatch, because what many people might not realise who tune in casually to watch these races is that you do this for real, don't you?
I do, yeah. This is our first full season. We're leading the championship after round 1, and we're racing at Snetterton on the 14th of May.
There we go, a bit of early practice then for our touring car round there in a few weeks. Scott, huge congratulations. That's Scott Bugner, everyone, who won the race, not Joel Lask. Apologies for that, Scott. We'll see you again after race 2.
No problem, thank you, and well done, Oliver.
Yeah, absolutely. Scott Bugner enjoying a race-long battle there with Oliver Gibson, who catches up now with Jack Oliphant.
Yeah, Oliver, that one was hard work, wasn't it? For a long time, we thought you were running away with it. And actually, we hypothesized before the race started that the BMW would struggle in the first couple of laps. But you drove away, and all of a sudden, they started chipping away at you. What sort of went on?
I have no idea, to be fair. I don't know. I think once Scott got into his groove and obviously, he mentioned his experience from Brands, and he's very quick. So I think for him, he was just chipping away at the lap times, and I was praying that he would make a mistake, but he wouldn't. And then obviously, I thought as soon as he'd go past me, he'd absolutely rock it off, and that's what he did. So yeah, I was just trying to save tires and save hybrid, and then unfortunately it didn't work out.
I think rocketing off is slightly unfair on you, to be fair. You kept them honest. You tried your best to go around the outside of Paddock Hill, which is always quite an impressive one. But realistically, we saw you spinning the tyres up quite a lot. Were you just sort of a little bit too keen to get on the power and use that advantage of the rear-wheel drive?
Yeah, I mean, I think I started overdriving because it was I kind of thought he'd take off, which I think he did, because it's like he said, he's milliseconds different from everybody. So it's I think I just started overdriving and then cooked the tires a bit, and he kept it on the road, and like I did.
Well, you made it very, very enjoyable to watch there, Oliver. Congratulations on the pole position, and the second place is not too shabby either. We'll let you concentrate and head off for race 2.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jack. Thanks, Oliver. Well done. Third place in that race went to Elliot Dalton-Ayres. And Elliot, compared to those two, you had a pretty uneventful time of it, certainly in the second half of the race, but you had to get your defending boots on in the first 10 minutes as well, didn't you?
Yeah, definitely. It was a race of two halves for me. I mean, the first maybe 15, 12 minutes was definitely defending from Jack and Joel. But luckily for me, which took a bit of pressure off, is they had a little bit of a coming together, which allowed me to escape a lot. And then I just pressed a few hybrids, and I was just trying to catch up to Scott and Oliver. But as Scott said, it's milliseconds. It's very hard to catch up on a very small track like this, where everyone's very close.
Big improvement for you, though, on Donington Park, where you netted a 7th and a 12th place, which was points, but not as many points as you'd have liked, I'm sure. You really have to seize these opportunities, though. When a podium finish comes around, you've got to take it, because they're not going to come around every race.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, Joel got through in a couple early stage, but luckily for me, at least, he had a little bit of a moment that allowed me to get up the inside, and then I think he went a little bit deep, and I got the switch back, and then just defended from Jack when Jack got through. But yeah, just again, luckily they had a little bit of a moment.
They did. It worked in your favour, that is for sure. But it was a really solid drive, that, Elliot. Congratulations on the podium finish. And who knows, we might be seeing you again after race 2.
Thank you.
So they are your podium finishers then from our first race at Brands Hatch. Now, before we dive into race number 2, an opportunity to remind you very quickly of what's going on here at the VRRC. We'll return to this again a bit later on in the night. But if you want to get involved, if you're enjoying what you're seeing so far tonight, don't forget there's another race still to come. There are plenty of chances for you to get on the grid. Not necessarily for this championship, the next round of which will be in a week's time at Croft. But we've got our Time Attack series, a GT Time Attack series starting off. In fact, it began the other day with the GT4 BMW at Hockenheim. We've got the Formula 1 mirror races, the fun free-to-enter races as well. The next of those at Imola on the 16th of May. Head over to the VRRC social media platforms for all of the information on how you can get on track here at the VRRC. So that is what is coming up here at VRRC. What's coming up imminently is our reversed grid second race. The car's already lining up, the lights about to go on. Kenny Press starting from pole position alongside Ben Jemison, with our race 1 winner Scott Bugner starting down in 21st, ahead of only the non-finishers from race 1. There is Carl Felvis. We'll get a brilliant view of what he thinks of the start of the race, which happens now, and it will be Ben Jemison, I think in the Toyota maybe, who gets into the lead. Kenny Press with a good second phase of the start though, has that inside line, and retains first position. Sam Zero through into second position. Third place looks as though it's Reese Bell coming through on the inside in his Ford, although Jemison fighting back on the outside at Druids, where the race leader runs out wide. Carl Felvers is chatting away to somebody down there as he comes out of Druids, almost waving a hand of apology there. And there is someone on the grass. That is Andy Dorman's Ford Focus sliding down the hill as they're 3 abreast towards Surtees, Jack.
Yeah, I've no idea how they're going to sort themselves out through Surtees, but it's a bit of a shame. Oh, we see them already side by side and sideways as well, as Andy Carroll is the car we're focusing on, but he's got 3 or 4 ahead of him, all trying to sort themselves out and back across the line. Now, amazingly, I think they've just about held onto the black stuff. Eric Axelson's right in the middle of that. So Scott Bugner and Jordan Taylor, and pretty much everybody we were chatting about in the first race is right in the thick of it. Jack Smith is just ahead as there's contact through Paddock Hill Bend, Andy, and I suppose we're not entirely surprised.
Oh, well, that's Andy Carroll off. There was another car destined for the gravel, I think, at Druids. It's all kicking off. Carl Felvers was in the middle of that, schmozzle on the first lap, but somehow has come through, 7th or 8th, depending on which moment you look at the timing. He gets elbowed out wide by Alok Iyengar. I mean, you will try around the outside of Graham Hill Bend in a touring car race, Carl. That, I'm afraid, was always likely to happen. He launches up the inside into Clearway's corner, though, and that was equally aggressive. He is sideways, so is Iyengar. Out into the gravel trap he will go. Just keeps it on the black stuff, actually, and Felvers gets through. Now, will he choose to give that place back to Iyengar, or will Alok, perhaps, get past him anyway? There's another Honda, and that's Craig Curtis in the battle, too, as Iyengar tries to send it around the outside of Kyle Felvers. That's never going to work, and Kyle will hang on to 7th place. It's Kenny Press, by the way, who still leads this race. Sam Zero second and Nathan Smith in third. So we've not seen, Jack, that usual sort of shuffling at the start of the race. Those who started at the reversed grid, at the front of the reversed grid, for the time being, staying there.
Yeah, no, well, we have seen lots of shuffling, just not the front. The top 5 have done fairly well at pulling away with this. Everybody else has decided to crash into each other. I think that's the big thing, isn't it? But yeah, Kenny with a 2.5 gap pretty much to Sam Zero, who's holding off the likes of Nathan Smith and Ethan Hill's up there. Now, we thought Ethan Hill was uncharacteristically low down and seemed to be struggling with the car in race 1. What can he pull out the bag for race 2? Now he's got a brand new car, essentially. Is he able to actually get a wiggle on and really perform where we expect him to perform, or is he going to struggle again, and maybe just the fact that he hasn't put the practice in? I'm not entirely sure. I suppose this race we will find out, but currently he is pretty much trying everything he can to get past Nathan Smith and get onto the podium positions. He'll want to do this sooner rather than later as well, because once everybody stops squabbling, the likes of Kyle Felvers and Elliot Dalton Ayres will be hot on the tails of the top 3.
Speaking of squabbling, Ben Jemison and Alok Iyengar had a big moment at Paddock Hill Bend, and that promotes Elliot Dalton Ayres into 7th. So of those coming from the back, those podium finishers from that earlier race, Dalton Ayres by far the best performer. He's up to 7th already. Bugner is 14th, and Oliver Gibson only 17th. So Gibson's really been on the wrong side of some of those early race exchanges. He and Jack Smith, in fact, both struggling along, both outside the top 15 for the time being. There is Lee Morgan setting the fastest lap. We're following and riding on board with Ethan Hill, who sits in 4th position, as perhaps now it's just starting to bunch up behind Sam Zero, with Kenny Press managing this gap quite nicely. Now, I'm not sure off the top of my head what the best finish Kenny Press has had with the VRLC is, but I'm pretty certain he's never had a podium before, perhaps never even a top 5, and so far he is driving a really, really good race. Still 16 minutes to go, Jack, but Kenny Press right now doing everything right.
I'm loving Kenny Press right now, but he has just given away about a second to Sam Zero. Look at it as they go through Paddock Hill Bend. I don't know what Kenny Press did, as you were even saying the sentence, Sandy, but he's just lost all of that gap. He had a 1.2 second lead. Now it's only, well, to be fair, going through Druids, actually, it's just gone up to half a second, in all fairness to him, but still, something went majorly wrong through the final corner, unfortunately, as we still see Ethan Hill not able to pass Smith, and then Kyle Felvers and Reese Bell just behind. Felvers has got past Reese Bell. He'll be hoping and hunting for a race victory, won't he? He'll be expecting that he's quicker than the 4 drivers ahead of him, Andy. He'll be expecting himself to be getting that race win.
Indeed so. Look at the way this is closed down, and Kenny Press offers up no resistance to Sam Zero, who on the hybrid admittedly made that look very, very easy. So Kenny Press sensibly there, choosing his battles wisely. There was no sense really in defending there from Sam Zero. All that would have done is back them both up into Nathan Smith and Ethan Hill behind, although now Smith is up the inside at Druid's corner, and it looks as though the Toyota is going to get through into second place. Press down to third, Hill fourth, Felvers fifth. Now, could Kyle Felvers be the danger man here? Because he and Elliot Dalton-Ayres are arguably the two fastest drivers on the track right now. Dalton-Ayres is closing, but Kyle Felvers, our reversed grid winner in the previous week at Donington, and now he's up the inside of Ethan Hill for fourth.
Yeah, it's a good charge, isn't it, from Felvers, and he's got that fourth place pretty well done dusted. I don't think Ethan Hill was ever going to really make a massive meal of that, was he? And he was, but he's already gone for third place as Carl Felvers, as he reappears into our shot. No messing about. Well, I was not surprised that it was easy against Ethan Hill. I am slightly surprised that it was that easy against Kenny Press, as Sam Zero and Nathan Smith quabble over second place. Ethan Hill gives a hip and shoulder, as Andy would say, to Kenny Press, and gets himself into fourth.
That is Nathan Smith sideways, had a pop at Sam Zero for the lead, got it all wrong at Graham Hill Bend. Zero stays in front and somehow Smith stays in second position, but that was a very optimistic lunge from the Toyota driver. Into Clearway's corner they will go. He drifts a little bit wide again. Felvers will surely jump on the hybrid, which he does. In fact, all of our leading group of 5 do, coming out of Clark Curve, so they all sort of cancel each other out really when they do that. No major gains to be had. Can Felvers make the move under braking? He looks to the inside. He is very, very, very late on the brakes, but Nathan turns across his bows. Fair play. There's no reason for Nathan to pull out of the way here, and he certainly is not pulling out of the way. The Toyota driver stays second for now.
He does indeed. Yeah, there was absolutely no. Carl Felvers was nowhere near alongside him enough to claim the corner. So Smith had every right to take the apex, and that's exactly what he did, showing that he's not going to be scared out of this one. He wants a podium position just as much as the next driver. But Sam Zero misses the apex. Smith might well get held up on the penultimate apex here. No, he doesn't quite get close enough. Carl Felvers, you would imagine his face is a picture of concentration as he wipes his nose. Maybe not quite a picture of concentration that we're expecting, but he'll be on the hybrid. Sam Zero's off the hybrid. Is there going to be a lunge? Yes, there is, by Nathan Smith. And off goes Sam Zero.
That was suboptimal, I think they would say. Here comes Felvers up the inside line, and he is going to be handed on a plate, really, the race lead. Look at the concentration as he puts armfuls of steering lock into the Honda through Druid. Now, Nathan Smith still got the inside. We know he's not afraid to get stuck in here. He leaves space on the exit, in fairness. Both of them on the hybrid going down the Cooper Straight, and Felvers is on the outside now of a driver who he's never really raced wheel to wheel with. This is brave stuff. Settles back in behind, and here comes Dalton-Ayres. Elliot Dalton-Ayres on already for a double podium. Could he make it a race win?
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut over you there, Andy, but Nathan Smith was on the hybrid through Graham Hill Bend. He was on the exit of Druid, going on the hybrid as they go 3 wide into Paddock Hill. Kyle Felvers on the inside. Dalton-Ayres looked to the outside, but he's actually going for a cutback on Nathan Smith. I fear Nathan Smith is going to be the big loser in all of this. Maybe a little bit of an experience as Kyle Felvers takes that race lead, and he'll be thinking that he deserves that one after carving through the field, setting that move up for about a lap and a half. Dalton-Ayres into second place through Graham Hill. Nathan Smith makes contact with Dalton-Ayres. A bit of rear wheel movement as well, but Dalton-Ayres looks about just to hold on to it. No, because here comes Smith back on the hybrid. Kenny Press is off the track.
Oh, that's a shame because he was still inside the top 10. He got fired off to stage right going out of Graham Hill Bend. How on earth Elliot Dalton-Ayres is still in this group, I don't know, because he was served up the back going into Paddock Hill Bend very aggressively by Ethan Hill, who got it all wrong under braking. Somehow Elliot saved it, and then, as you said, had that moment at Graham Hill Bend as well. But for Kyle Felvers, that is not good news. Dalton-Ayres getting through into second place because Dalton-Ayres, I think, is the fastest driver on the track right now. He's got no traffic to deal with, and he will now set off after the Honda. It's side by side for third between Nathan Smith and Ethan Hill, and as they go down into the braking zone at Graham Hill Bend, the Toyota again stays ahead. Reese Bell trying to close in on them. Reese having a really, really good race in fifth place. Joel Lask 6th, Craig Curtis 7th, Scott Bugner 8th, Jordan Taylor 9th, and Josh Martin completing the top 10 for the time being as the battle rages on for what is now third place then. So Smith, Hill and Reese Bell getting themselves together as already, Jack, that lead lap comes down. the lead gap comes down.
Yeah, Adrian Felvis has been on the YouTube chat saying that he can't breathe. Well, I can understand why. I mean, I was struggling too when calling that one. That gap is starting to come down, and Elliot Daltonez of the fight for the race lead. That's going to be spicy. Nathan Smith, Ethan Hill, who I'm sure will be a very popular podium sitter as well, especially after race 1. He's on the hybrid, and look at this. Smith has already used all of his hybrids up, and we've only just hit the halfway mark. So I fear that he's going to be a bit of a sitting duck. He has been using 2 a lap for every single lap, I'm pretty sure. So he's going to struggle now to defend. He hasn't got anything in his armory apart from where to position the car. And if he misses the apex like he has just done there, I fear that he's going to maybe struggle a little bit through this race.
The line we go again, on board with Ethan Hill. We are not on the hybrid. Nathan Smith, as Jack says, has no hybrids left, and the Ford was gaining in the slipstream anyway. And in the mirrors, look, here comes a blue and grey LB Motorsport Hyundai. That is Joel Lask into the top 5. So Joel Lask on for a really good night here at Brands Hatch, and he could be a candidate along with Elliot Daltonez for being the highest scoring driver of the night. Remember, the driver who takes the most points away from these 2 races at Brands Hatch will be receiving an NGK bobble hat at the end of the night. The same goes for every one of the 8 rounds that we've got this season, and he's closing in on this 3rd place battle now. Joel Lask in the mirrors, the Toyota of Nathan Smith ahead. Where do you look if you're Ethan Hill? Well, not to the apex, seemingly. That was a very wide line through clearways.
Yeah, I think Joel Lask saw that. He thought, oh, okay, I'll have a little bit of a nibble there. Looked up the inside, and all of a sudden the door closed. But here is Elliot Daltonez for the race lead. Carl Velvis is going to have to, well, give in to that one, I think, a little bit, because Daltonez was on the hybrid. He was on the inside. Everything was pointing towards a race lead change, and that's exactly what's happened. Elliot has it for the time being. Kyle is going to get muscled out of this one, I fear. He's going to have to charge this one up. 8.5 minutes to go, though. Plenty of racing left.
Elliot Daltonez carrying only 15 kilos of ballast, remember, whereas Carl Felvis has 45, which is only 5 less than the maximum, but he's back on the hybrid, back on the inside and back into the race lead. We're going to have another one of those titanic tussles for race victory. Now, Carl Felvis was involved in one of these a week ago with Joel Lask in that 2nd race at Donington Park. He managed to get the better of the Hyundai driver then. Now he's got the newly signed for Phoenix Sim Racing, Elliot Daltonez, to do battle with. And Elliot goes to the outside into Paddock Hill Bend. That's not going to work on the way in, but instead looks for the cutback, looks to get the run up the hill. Felvis is wise to it, chops to the inside, and Carl looks to defend the position again at Druid's corner. To the outside goes the race leader, the Hyundai, sorry, of Daltonez, which gives him the inside, but Graham Hill Bend. That was brave. It didn't work. But am I reading this right, Jack, that Daltonez is out of hybrids now?
That was exactly what I was going to lead with when we threw over, actually. It was Elliot Daltonez is, well, I mean, used and abused the hybrid button, hasn't he? And now all of a sudden he's not a sitting duck, but going to find it very difficult to actually attack Kyle Felvis for the next 7 minutes. Luckily for him, I don't think the 2 drivers behind him, well, maybe Joel Lask probably will have something to say about this statement, but I don't think they're quite as quick as Elliot Daltonez appears to have been. However, Joel Lask still has those hybrids in the armory, but he has to get past Ethan Hill. So there's quite a few little things that they're going to have to think about, but that might just work out for Elliot Daltonez, the fact that Ethan Hill still sits in 3rd place.
Don't look now, but everyone else is trying to be 3rd as well, because this battle between Hill and Lask is, well, perhaps 5th, we should say, at the moment. Nathan Smith dropping off the back of those 2, but then, well, basically, it's everybody else. It's Scott Bugner, Craig Curtis, Jordan Taylor, Jack Smith, Eric Axelson, Josh Martin, Andy Dorman, Reese Bell, Andy Carroll, Oliver Gibson, all in a long line, and they might now be unleashed, because out wide at Clearways goes the Toyota of Nathan Smith. Lask goes 4th, Bugner, his teammate, going with him in 5th position, and it looks as though that must be a lapped car of the Ford there. That will be Dorman, is it? Maybe Vickers in the Ford. He is a lap down, I think. He's not showing on the timing tower, unless I'm completely misreading that. So I think you've got Hill 4th, Bugner 5th, then a lapped car, which is battling away here with the... No, it's a Honda. I'm talking rubbish. That is Craig Curtis, Jack, having a barnstormer of a race. He's into 6th.
Yeah, I was curious on that. I was trying to figure it out myself because I was looking at the timing screen, which obviously doesn't tell you the entire thing. But Craig Curtis is loving life right now. Am I correct in thinking that he is also a new driver to the VRRC, as Jordan Taylor, who has definitely caught the eye, shall we say, is again, although he's being forced out wide by the charging BMWs, who haven't quite done as well as we may have thought through this race, but there's still 5 minutes to go. But yeah, is Craig Curtis new to the VRRC? I don't think I recognise the name. There's a massive crash between Nathan Smith on the start finish line. Is he tagged? Who is he tagging there? Is it one of the The Mean Green Racing Machines. It's Josh Martin.
Oh, of course it was Josh Martin. It would be, wouldn't it? Josh Martin, from halfway through the last championship, just not buy any good luck, can he? And Josh Martin, having got into this race, started at the back, clawed his way into the top 10, and is just in the wrong place at the wrong time, and surely has some damage from that. Lee Morgan goes up the inside of him now, and Dave is done, he tells us in the chat, because Josh Martin is cruising home with damage to his Vauxhall. Things just not working out his way. Now, back at the front, this is the fight for the race lead, and Joel Lask, well, I thought that he'd won the previous race briefly. He might have a chance of getting a win here, because he's going to the outside of Dalton Ayres, who is hybridless, but so is Lask as well. So advantage here in track position for Felvers, and he's got that extra hybrid advantage too. And if these two Hyundais keep on battling each other, they could allow the Honda to escape.
Yeah, the only excuse Carl Felvers has right now is the fact that he's got that ballast on board, but I can't imagine he's going to need to worry about that too much for the next 4 minutes, because Dalton Ayres and Lask, like you just said, are going to throw everything at each other. You imagine Scott Bugner is in 4th place as well. He's going to be charging up as soon as you know it, and he's got a few of those hybrids left as well, as Elliot Dalton Ayres tries to Joel Lask tries to crowbar a gap on the inside of Dalton Ayres, who swiftly closes it, and well, they're back down to 2nd and 3rd, nothing going on at Paddock Hill Bend. But you said about a couple of laps ago, Andy, that everybody else is trying to be 3rd. I would say that within the next 2 minutes, with probably about 2 laps to go, everyone's going to be trying to be 2nd place here. It's going to be very close.
Now towards Graham Hill Bend we go then. 3 3/4 minutes to go, and you're absolutely right, because Scott Bugner, we know, has pace. He is closing on these two. Ethan Hill having a much better showing as well. It's almost like he was sandbagging in the first race a little bit, because he really didn't look this quick in race 1, did he? But now he's at the front in race 2, going really well. It can look like that sometimes, but actually that's just the strength in depth we've got in this field. You get buried back in the pack and you just can't make any progress. But give a driver like Ethan Hill some track position and he comes to life. Craig Curtis, one of the drivers of the night for me, in 6th place. Jack Smith, by the way, quietly going about his business, is into 7th. It's not been a headline grabbing evening for Jack Smith, but he is scoring good points and he'll be relatively satisfied with that, especially given the fact he will lose a bit of weight for next week. Jordan Taylor likewise having a good night in 8th, Eric Axelson 9th, and Andy Dorman at the moment completes the top 10. The big question though is who is going to finish on the podium. Felvers looks good for the win, but 2nd is anyone's guess.
Yeah, it looks like it's going to be a bit of a battle between the Hyundais, isn't it, really? Dalton Ayres, Lask and Bugner. And there goes Joel Lask. There's a little tap at the rear end of Elliot Dalton Ayres. Now, we saw this about a lap or 2 ago, and it didn't work that time for Joel Lask, but it looks like he has managed to crowbar that gap open, and he's going to be on the inside for Graham Hill Bend. Elliot Dalton Ayres trying to break a little bit earlier, maybe getting that cutback. I think he did a little bit too early there. Joel Lask didn't need to break that late. He didn't need to worry about it too much. He retained 2nd place, and his teammate Scott Bugner is well within the hunt to get on the podium with him.
And Graham Hill Bend again. 2 1/4 minutes now left on the clock. In the background, by the way, Craig Curtis, 6th position. Impressive stuff, but he's got Jack Smith, the championship leader, coming into tonight right behind him. They were both, though, closing in slightly on Ethan Hill. So Jack Smith, if he clears the first of these Hondas quickly, might have a chance of gaining more ground. But the BMW, it just doesn't do its overtaking under braking, does it? Its advantage has always been on exit, and that makes it a very, very difficult car to overtake in on a track like this, where really you do a lot of your overtaking under braking. Jack Smith, I thought, was going to make a liar out of me there, but Craig Curtis had that one covered, moved over to defend, and Jack Smith will sit back in behind him again. We've got 2 more laps to go. Still battles raging on, up and down the order, as Smith now goes to the outside of Curtis at Druid's Corner. Craig Curtis, though, may not be very experienced at racing with the VRRC, but you never know it. He placed the car perfectly there.
He did indeed, and he's earning in some fans already. Those motorsport fans, they are a fickle bunch, aren't they? As Dave has decided to change allegiances, not support
time.
No, exactly, but this time not supporting Josh Martin's teammate. He's supporting Craig Curtis, as Jack Smith sent it to the apex there, didn't he? There was a BMW-sized hole that Smith decided, you know what, I'm going to fill that one. Thank you very much, I'll take 6th.
He does. So Jack Smith into 6th. Can he now do anything about Ethan Hill on the final lap? That might be a little bit too much to ask, mightn't it? Can Dalton Ayres stay on the podium? That's perhaps the question we need to ask ourselves, because he is fading in the final laps of the race. He's got Scott Bugner closing in on him, definitely. And Scott Bugner, I think, is going to come out as the top scorer tonight, because he had that really impressive first race. That's Jack Smith. That is Jack Smith around. Jack, what happened?
Yeah, he ended up making contact with Ethan Hill. I don't know whether he was trying to go to the inside of Graham Hill Bend on Ethan Hill, but he was certainly on the inside as they came out of the corner. So that was a big moment as Jack Smith, as we said, the BMWs, the rear-wheel drive is just so delicate. You can't make any contact, and Jack Smith ended up spinning around. He's in 13th place.
Right then, on to the, well, we know we're on the final lap. I think the checkered flag will just come out this time. No, they've just crept through. Apologies, that was not the race-leading battle. This is the race-leading battle, because Joel Lask, out of nowhere, has clawed those tenths back again against Kyle Felbus. Dalton Ayres and Bugner nose to tail for 3rd as well. But Joel Lask wants the race victory. This is exactly the situation we had a week ago at Donington, with Lask chasing down Felbus on the final lap. We all saw how that ended. What will happen here at Brands Hatch? He's into the back of the Honda. He's on the inside of the Honda, and he's shoveled him out wide. Surely that won't be allowed to stand. Joel Lask on the inside line, and he is going to go through. Felbus can't fight back, but provisionally Joel Lask will win on the final corner, with Felbus a disgruntled 2nd. Dalton Ayres hangs on to 3rd, with Scott Bugner in 4th position, and Kyle Felbus cannot believe it. 2 weeks in a row he has clashed with Joel Lask on the final lap of race 2, and this time it's Lask who gets to the flag first, but that looked a tad aggressive to me, I have to say. We will let the stewards do their job in the week to decide what the outcome of that should be. Lask then provisionally wins it, Felbus 2nd, Dalton Ayres in 3rd, with Scott Bugner and Ethan Hill completing the top 5. Then it was Curtis Taylor, Axelson Dorman and Andy Carroll. There were a lot of stories to be told after what was a lively second race, as you'd expect. We'll have all the reaction from our podium finishers once we've just sort of built up our courage, because, well, it's Jack who will have the pleasure of chatting to Carl Felbus in a moment as our runner-up finisher. Can't wait to see what his thoughts are. Stick around, everyone. Welcome back to Brands Hatch and the Cammus Simulation Touring Car Championship, which has just had another fantastic, breathless, entertaining race come to conclusion here, with Joel Lask finding a way past Carl Felbus on the very last corner to claim the victory. I sort of can't wait to get their thoughts on that. I'm also sort of entering into these interviews with a bit of trepidation, but let's see what Joel Lask has to say. What was an entertaining conclusion to that race. Joel, you had a go at Kyle earlier on, fell back a little bit, then really came back at him in the closing stages. Talk us through what was going on there in the final 7 or 8 minutes or so.
It was just catching him, to be fair. I knew I had the pace. Like, the car was definitely quicker, and they were just trying to find a way past, to be honest.
Well, okay, let's talk about it then, because we're very good at stirring things, if nothing else, here in the commentary box. What happened at that final corner? It was a robust move, wasn't it? But it's the kind of thing we do see in touring car racing at that corner.
I mean, to be fair, the way I see it, obviously I need to look back at the replay, but obviously you come across the defender's inside line and brake quite heavily to then cover it. But so at that point, we were bumper to bumper, so obviously braking well before the actual entry into the last corner, so there wasn't really much else I could have done. But hey, I mean, it is what it is, right? It's the same as last week. It was just Robbins racing, but yeah, we'll have to look at the replay. We'll see what his thoughts are.
Is this the next Jason Plato versus Matt Neal rivalry, I sense then? Because you two do seem to have a habit so far this season of coming together at the end of these reverse grid races. You're two very feisty drivers, clearly very evenly matched on pace as well. So probably not the last we'll see of you two going door to door.
You never know. We'll see how it goes.
Good stuff. Well, Joel Lask, winner then of our fourth round of the championship. That was Joel in the blue corner. Now Jack is catching up with the man in the pink corner, our runner-up finisher, Carl Felvis.
Yeah, no, Kyle, let's get straight into it. Well, first of all, no, let's not get straight into it. First of all, congratulations on a second place, because, I mean, that's nothing to be sniffed at, is it? I mean, you were obviously thinking in qualifying, after qualifying 13th, a bit of a fight back in race one, and obviously a brilliant race in race two. At the end of the day, that is still some good results, isn't it?
Yeah, it was good. I mean, P2 is always a good result, but when P1 gets snatched from you like that, it's just a bit heartbreaking.
Well, okay, yes, let's get into it then. We've heard Joel's side of the argument in terms he was catching and touring car moves, etc., etc. What was your sort of view on it? He said that maybe you moved over to the inside to defend your line, and you defended very heavily. Fully within your rights, in your opinion, to do that?
Well, I mean, yeah, it's defending. You know, like you're entitled to defend. You're entitled to defend once, and that's exactly what I did. I made a mess of the corner just before it, so I was slower, but, you know, we all have a brake pedal, and it's there to be used. And this is, you know, it's happened twice now, and it gets to a point where racing just doesn't become enjoyable from it, because you can't have good battles.
Well, I was going to say, it was a bit of a shame, wasn't it? I think that it culminated in the way that it did, but you're pushing through the order in terms of the early racing in race number 2 was very impressive indeed. That must have been very enjoyable because there were lots of clean moves in there. There was lots of close racing and lots of sort of entertaining storylines to be had in that sort of first 10 minutes. That must have been enjoyable. Yeah,
the race was absolutely amazing for the first 15 minutes, I'll call it. People, so much respect, everyone giving respect. I had a great battle with Reese. Lots of respect given, like both of us, we'd given each other room like that. That's great to see. That's what you want to see in a race. And, you know, it's everything else that happens isn't what you want to see in racing. But I guess that's what happens. But yeah, the rest of the race was excellent.
I was going to say, just on one driver that we were sort of calling out a lot in during that one, and that you took a couple of corners to get through, which we were quite impressed with from their perspective, was Nathan Smith, a driver that you haven't necessarily raced with that much. We haven't seen them at VRRC. What's it like to race with these new drivers? Because there's lots of new faces in the championship.
Yeah, love to see it. We love to see everyone coming in and, you know, new faces. It gets a bit boring racing the same people all the time. So it's nice to see new people, and especially when they can bring a fight like that, it's great, and it's nice to know that there's going to be some more competitors on the grid.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much, Kyle. And I have to say, very well done on the second place, and a very good interview as well. It's easy to let emotions get swept away, but I have to say, we've been talking in the Discord as well. We think you've matured an awful lot over the last 12 months with how you're dealing with everything, and I think very, very impressive. Hopefully, a lot of the young drivers can follow suit as well when they get in the interview box. But congratulations on the second place. Hopefully, we'll speak to you next week.
Cheers, Jack.
Indeed so. And I'll tell you what, if Carl Felvis doesn't already, he should take up streaming himself when he does these races, because I said this last week, I could sit and just watch his reactions to the race and nothing else, and that would be my entertainment for the night. Fantastic to have the chance to ride on board with Kyle. Right then, bit of deja vu now, because in third place in that race, against all the odds I might say, was Elliot Dalton-Ayres. Elliot, I counted 2 or 3 moments at least where you should have ended up in the gravel trap in that race. There was a particularly big moment at Paddock Hill Bend towards the end there. Somehow, though, you came out of it all with another really strong result. Got to be happy with that.
Yeah, I mean, good points. Good points. I don't know how many I collected, but got quite a few. Got 2 podiums, and the first 15 minutes, maybe a bit less, was just battling through everyone. Hopefully that got quite a bit of screen time to show the logo on the car and show what me, Reese, and Stu represent, and to try and spread the word about Phoenix Sim Racing, of getting people with mental mental health issues into sim racing. So hopefully there was quite a bit of screen time.
There definitely was. And actually, I meant to ask you about this after race one, but we ran short on time. We've got more time now, so we can discuss it at slightly greater length. But you have now sort of signed up this partnership with the Phoenix Sim Racing team. Talk to us a little bit about that. How did that come about? Why is it something that you were particularly keen to be involved with?
I think it might have been a practice session at Donny, and it might have been me and Reese were just going at each other, just battling and practicing. And then he mentioned something, and I think I texted him like a bit late, say like I'd like to get involved, and I'd like to represent and try and spread the word about Phoenix Sim Racing with mentally ill people getting into sim racing. And then I think we just later on came to an agreement, and here we are.
It's fantastic to have you representing that team, as you said, representing such a fantastic cause as well, and doing it at the front of the field, because that's 2 really good races, 2 third places. I think that you will be the top scorer, most likely, or one of the top scorers anyway, for the night. So your championship sort of really started properly tonight, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, Donny wasn't really too good for me. Apart from maybe race 1, 7th is not too bad, but not overly where I wanted to be. But then race 2 kind of just unraveled. I got a bit of a tap from behind, and that sent me off, and just had to claw my way back through to 12th. And yeah, not exactly what you wanted on a race 2.
No, a little bit suboptimal, I suppose, but things worked out for you nicely. Good points in the bag, and I'm sure it's not the last we'll be hearing of you, and certainly not the last we'll be seeing of your car on our streams this season. Elliot, congratulations. Really, really strong night.
Thanks, Andy.
So there you have it then, our top 3 finishers from a fantastic second race of the evening here at Brands Hatch. Let's take a look, shall we, at what that means for the championship standings. Now, I will use that we won't have a look at the points because it's not working yet at the moment, apparently. We'll try and see if that gets updated in a moment or two. Our provisional championship standings, we'll try and bring that to you in a moment. In the meantime, we can perhaps try and have a chat with our driver of the round, Jack, because we've been doing a bit of chatting behind the scenes, trying to figure out who our driver of the round should be. There were quite a few candidates, weren't there?
There were indeed, yeah. We were very impressed with some of the newcomers. Jordan Taylor caught my eye for sure, not just because he has an awesome looking car, but because he did so well in that race 1 and race 2. We caught little glimpses of him here and there. That was very entertaining. I think we were talking about Elliot Dalton-Ayres as one of the drivers that was impressed, but he always impresses it. He seems to have pushed on from his GTV3 championship. He's going to certainly be a championship contender for this one as well. But we have decided to go another way, haven't we? And I think we're just checking whether he's actually ready to talk to us, Andy. Has he left the Discord?
He has. We teed that up beautifully, didn't we? Craig, in fairness, doesn't know that he's getting the Driver of the Round award, but if you are watching, or when you do decide to re-watch the stream, then Craig Curtis, you are our Driver of the Round for tonight, and you are going to be receiving a jacket courtesy of our sponsors, NGK, Oh, he's back. He's back. I think someone's maybe sent him a message. I'll drag him in quickly before he disappears again. We can hopefully have a word with a driver who's been a very, very impressive newcomer to the championship. Debuted last time at Donington Park, but he's gone again. He's gone again. Never mind. Let's move on before we make complete fools of ourselves. Craig Curtis, well done. You are the driver of the round, and an NGK jacket is coming your way. Quick, Lewis, show us something on the screen. Let's take a look, shall we, Jack? Again, in a bit more detail, what's coming up here at the VRRC.
Yeah, we had it rushed a little bit last time, didn't we? So we've already seen the graphic. Andy's already spoken to us a little bit about this sort of top row of things that are going on. But of course, we've then got the round 4 of the touring cars, which of course goes to the green hell of Alton Park. We're then off to the time attack where we're doing Imolas and the GT3 Lamborghini. So yeah, if anybody was doing the Imola in the fun race, mirror fun race F1 car style thing, you've already had a little bit of practice of Imola. And then, of course, we're on to another mirror fun race, if you can call it fun, an F1 car around the Monaco Grand Prix circuit. I have never once described the Monaco Grand Prix circuit and an F1 car as fun, but there are some crazy people out there that may well enjoy it. So yeah, that can be tested on the Tuesday, the 23rd of May as well, for another one of those fun races. So plenty going on with the VRRC. If you want to to get involved with any of it, there's a link in the description. It'll take you to the website, might take you to the Discord. To be honest, I haven't looked at it for a couple of months, so either way, it will take you to somewhere you need to be. Someone will be happy to talk to you through it if you're on the Discord, or you can use the contact page on the website, and Rich Hayden himself, the big boss, will come in and walk you through it.
Wow, well, there's reason enough to do exactly that then. So, yes, do get involved. We'd love to see new drivers. And as we've seen, and Craig Curtis is a great example of this, a driver who is brand new to racing with the VRRC. We've seen a few drivers actually on the grid tonight who have got involved through those fun races, which are free to enter. And it's a great way to sort of size up the competition and get a feel for the vibe here at the VRRC. And you can then perhaps start to commit to some of the good racing that is going on. Right then, I think we can now have a quick look at the championship table because it has been updated. Now, remember that this might not make a lot of sense at first viewing, and that's because we have drop scores here at the VRRC as always. So each driver can drop their worst night of racing. So that's a qualifying, a race 1 and a race 2. They can drop their worst week of racing. So this is of the first 2 weeks, each driver's best score. So Jack Smith, it's his Donington Park score that counts. The same actually is true of Carl Felvers, but Scott Bugner, who was the top scorer tonight, it's his Brands Hatch event that counts towards the points table. Any of that made sense, well, congratulations. If it doesn't, take it up with Rich Hayden, and let's see if he can change the way that the points work, because drop scores have been confusing commentators for many a year. Jack Smith, then the championship leader. Carl Felvers, Scott Bugner joint second. Joel Lask and Elliot Dalton-Ayres joint fourth, with Oliver Gibson in fifth position. It's setting itself up nicely already, isn't it, Jack?
It is indeed, yeah, and I think there are even drivers. Josh Martin, I mean, for instance, he should have been a lot higher on that list. He had a torrid night with software issues or hardware issues, and then being hit off in race 2. You'd expect to see him climbing up. Eric Axelson, it's unusual to see him clinging on to the top 10. So, yeah, I think the likes of Jordan Taylor will be very pleased to be in 7th place, but he's going to have his work cut out with him for him, to be staying ahead of the likes of the Mean Green Racing Team machines, that's for sure. But yeah, that's the championship table as it currently stands. And we've also got one last bit of admin, and I believe that is to give out the NGK jacket to the best viewer, I should say, of the day, to the not commentator, because that's me and you, Andy. What is the word commentator?
Can we have a jacket anyway? Is that something that can be arranged?
I feel it is quite cold in here still. Yeah, I wouldn't mind a jacket. But yeah, and we decided, I believe, to give it to Adrian Felvers for this evening's good support of all things racing, not only Kyle, but everybody as well involved. So thank you very much, Adrian, for keeping up the positivity. Hopefully, once you got your jacket, you have to keep the positivity up all the way through the season as well. You can't just let it go now, okay? So yeah, but big thank you for sharing the stream, liking it, and everything else.
Yes, the comment that particularly caught our attention was something to do with Eric Axelson's watch, which did tickle us all. So thank you, Adrian, for that. As usual, a little bit of wit and humour is the quickest way to our hearts here in the commentary box. Right then, that is everything I think we've got time for. I think we've got through all of the admin. We've handed out all the prizes. We've enjoyed 2 fantastic races here from Brands Hatch, and we are already looking forward to doing it all again in a week's time, when we will head to Croft, he says hesitantly.
Yes.
There we go. Croft for the third round of the show. Jack was never going to forget. That was his favourite track, our host venue. If you tune into next week's broadcast, it's just 2 hours of Jack telling us why he loves racing at Croft. So tune in if you don't want to miss that. The third round of the Cammus Simulation Touring Car Championship, one not to be missed for sure. For now, though, from myself, Andy McEwan, from Jack Oliphant, from Lewis Edwards, Rich Hayden, everyone here at the VRRC, we thank you for your company. We'll see you again next week. Woo!